Last night was a historic moment in the United States Senate. After years and years of negotiations and collaboration, after working with stakeholders across the country, we made tremendous progress toward historic bipartisan environmental reform. The Frank R. Lautenberg Chemical Safety Act for the 21st century passed the Senate on unanimous voice vote with 60 bipartisan co-sponsors and with overwhelming support. This is a great milestone. First, I want to thank Senator Vitter. Senator Vitter and I introduced this legislation for one reason, one basic reason: to fix our nation's broken chemical safety law. I remember over 2 years ago, we had a very quiet dinner, and we walked away from that dinner saying, we're going to form a team and we're going to get this done. It was after Senator Frank Lautenberg had passed away, and Senator Vitter is a man of his word, and we stuck to it, and we're making significant historic progress, and I thank him for that. There were times when the bill was stalled from even getting introduced, and senators like Tom Carper stepped in and helped us get back on track. And I want to thank Senator Carper for that. His early leadership as an original co-sponsor of this bill got us off on the much-needed right foot, and other moderates joined in, and we had some momentum building up. This has been a long road. To get here today, I want to thank Chairman Imhoff for his calm, steady leadership, and Senators Merkley, Booker, Whitehouse, Markey, and Coons, and Senator Durbin, and many, many others. All helped move this forward, all helped make this a better bill. And I also want to thank Bonnie Lautenberg. Senator Lautenberg fought hard for TSCA reform. I was proud to take up that fight, and I'm grateful to Bonnie, who has helped us every step of the way. She's been an incredible advocate in terms of interacting with senators and their staff to push the crucial message forward on TSCA reform. And it was the message that her husband, Frank Lautenberg, would repeat every day when I saw him in committee. He said, are we doing the right thing for our children and our grandchildren? And he really believed TSCA reform would save more lives than anything that he had ever done in his life. And he had a very rich life and lived to almost be 90 years old. I'd also like to recognize the great advocates for reform. A lot of this was grassroots people standing up and saying, we haven't done what we need to do for the American people, for our families, for our children on chemical safety. And some of these, there are too many to mention all of them, but the Bipartisan Policy Center stood up and helped out. The Environmental Defense Fund, Fred Krupp, their leader, played a crucial role. The National Wildlife Federation, Colin there, helped out tremendously. March of Dimes, North America's Building Trades Union, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Mom's Clean Air Force, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, the Humane Society, and so many others. All of these groups taken together represent over 30 million Americans. All support the Lautenberg Act. They pushed Congress to act, and they kept pushing until we did act. Many thousands of Americans have worked for chemical safety reform over the last 4 decades. Thank you for not giving up. They understand that we need a national solution to our broken chemical safety law. The Toxic Substances Control Act was enacted in 1976, nearly 40 years ago. It was supposed to protect American families, but it doesn't. Over 4 decades, the EPA has been able to restrict just 5 chemicals, and it has prevented only 4 chemicals from going to market, and that's out of tens of thousands of chemicals. Every day, Americans go to the grocery store or the hardware store. They believe that the chemicals in the products they buy have been tested and they are safe, but that's not true because TSCA is broken. Because this is all about health and safety. This is about our children and grandchildren, and this is about people like Dominic Browning, who works with Mom's Clean Air Force, who worries about her kids and the toys and products they use every day. She herself survived kidney cancer. When she asked her doctor what caused her kidney cancer, he said, "It's one of those environmental ones. Who knows? We're full of chemicals." That's her doctor talking to her when she gets kidney cancer. This is about people like Lisa Huguenot. Lisa is a PhD scientist who has done work on chemical exposure at Princeton and Rutgers and at the state and federal levels. She's a mother first. Her 13-year-old son Harrison was born with autism and autoimmune deficiencies. 5 years ago, Lisa testified before Senator Lautenberg's subcommittee on the need for reform. She's eager to see TSCA reform be signed into law. That's why we're here, to fix this broken system. Now we're close to the finish line for the first time in almost 40 years. Mr. President, in 2009, the Obama administration laid out 6 essential principles for TSCA reform. The bill we passed last night meets all 6 of those principles. And let me go through those. Principle number 1, chemicals should be reviewed against safety standards that are based on sound science and reflect risk-based criteria protective of human health and the environment. Our bill requires EPA to assess chemicals based only on the health and safety information, not on the cost. That was a significant change we made, and many of the senators I talked about earlier helped us to get that done. Principle number 2, manufacturers should provide EPA with the necessary information to conclude that new and existing chemicals are safe and do not endanger public health or the environment. Our bill gives EPA new authorities to develop testing data and requires a finding of safety before new chemicals, as many as 1,500 a year, enter the market. So that finding on safety needs to be done, not like it's done today, but before they enter the marketplace. Principle number 3, risk management decisions should take into account sensitive populations, cost, availability of substitutes, and other relevant considerations. Our bill explicitly requires the protection of vulnerable populations and lists examples of such vulnerable populations, such as infants, the elderly, pregnant women, workers, and others. Principle number 4, manufacturers and EPA should assess and act on priority chemicals, both existing and new, in a timely manner. Our bill requires the EPA to systematically review all the chemicals in commerce, prioritizing the chemicals of most concern first, and it sets aggressive, judicially enforceable deadlines for EPA decisions. Principle number 5, green chemistry should be encouraged, and provisions assuring transparency and public access to information should be strengthened. Our bill includes a section on sustainable chemistry and also makes more information about chemicals available by limiting industry's ability to claim information as confidential. And it gives states and health professionals access to confidential information to protect the public. Principle number 6, EPA should be given a sustained source of funding for implementation. Our bill gives EPA sustained sources of funding and ensures that EPA's priorities are not overwhelmed by private interests to ensure that the program we implement is a risk-based system. Additionally, the bill allows EPA to develop cost-effective final regulations, but without the high procedural hurdles in the underlying statute. It strikes an appropriate balance between federal and state action. It gives states the right to co-enforce federal standards. So you have state attorney generals able to move when the federal government may not be moving. And it leaves state civil actions alone and gives no special advantage to either side in litigation. Mr. President, we're on the verge of historic reform. decades in the making and decades overdue. TSCA is the last of the environmental laws from the 1960s and 70s left to be updated. Some days you might not think we could pass a major environmental law in this Congress, but we've proven that wrong, and we have a very strong bill. Our bill finally gives the EPA the authority it needs to set clear guidelines for the EPA to evaluate new and existing chemicals and to protect the American people. That is why support for this bill was so strong and continued to build from environmental, conservation, good government, industry, and health and labor groups. We'll be working to reconcile the bill with the House legislation. This is historic reform. The old TSCA will be obsolete. We'll have a cop on the beat. We'll finally be able to protect our kids from toxic chemicals. Again, I want to thank Senator Vitter. I'm proud to work with him on this bill. We may disagree many times on other things. The negotiations were sometimes difficult, but we stayed at the table, we listened to all sides, and we looked for solutions instead of roadblocks. And I thank Senator Vitter for that. And I also want to again thank the many colleagues who worked with us for the best possible bill. At every step of the way, we had senators from both sides of the aisle step forward, make suggestions, join the bill, co-sponsor, and help move us forward. And it wouldn't be right to finish this afternoon without mentioning the staff. The staff do an incredible job here in the Senate in terms of getting focused on the issues, learning them in depth, working with each other, and many times moving roadblocks out of the way. And so we had a number of staff members here. One worked for Senator Vitter when Senator Vitter was chairman. He now works for Chairman Inhofe. Dimitri Karakotos. Dimitri's been amazing in terms of his staff ability and his understanding, and we really appreciate all of his help. Ryan Jackson, who is Chairman Inhofe's staff director. Zach Begg with Senator Vitter, Colin Peppard with Senator Carper, Adrian Devaney with Senator Merkley, Emily Enderle with Senator Whitehouse, Adam Zipkin with Cory Booker, Michal Friedhoff with Senator Markey, Jasmine Hunt with Senator Durbin, Lisa Hooman-Jones with Senator Coons, and I must say, I think I've mentioned Jonathan Black on my staff, but we've had incredible work by my legislative director, Andrew Wallace, all of my staff at various points, because this has been a heavy burden. It picked up parts where others had to work hard on this, and so I just appreciate so much from my chief of staff to everybody in the office, all the really hard work that has been done. We also had the opportunity to consult with and ask for help from the Senate Legislative Council. They work to turn around text so quickly at crucial points. That makes all the difference in the world sometimes, to be able to have a text, get it looked at, get the changes made, and get back to the individuals that are involved. And Michelle Johnson-Wider, she played a key role, Deanna Edwards, and I'm sure there were others over there that also helped us out. And that's not a definitive list. There were also many, many others. And so I want to conclude by thanking again our bipartisan partners. Senator Vitter and I have been working on this for years. We took it up after Senator Lautenberg passed away. Senator Vitter also, when he was on the committee and the ranking member and the chairman and back and forth, then Senator Inhofe took over. And I remember we had a meeting with Senator Inhofe, and he took a real interest in this. And he's had incredible, calm, steady judgment in terms of pulling together what needs to happen to get a bill done in this sometimes hyper partisan atmosphere. And he was always willing, as chairman, to listen to the people on the committee, off the committee, pull people together, and help them find common ground on this bill. So with that, we look forward to working with our House colleagues. Many of us served over in the House. We served with House members, Fred Upton, Representative Frank Pallone, John Chimkus, Representative Tonko. These are key people that are going to be working on this over in the House, and we look forward to working with them and our staff, working with each other to reconcile these bills. The House has some very good ideas in its bill, and we've been a little more expansive and covered more areas, and I hope they'll work with us on that. But we look forward to working with them and putting the two bills together and then getting this passed early next year.